This is a story about our lake, Lake Wakatipu. The lake is very deep and very long, and it's a rather strange shape. Its name comes from two Maori words, Tipua, which means giant, and Waka, which means a hollow. Put them together, and what do you get? The hollow of the giant. The story goes like this. A long time ago, in a place not so far away, a Maori chief called Tau Iri Iri Rua had a beautiful daughter. Her name was Manata. She had long black hair, brown eyes, and was the loveliest girl in all the village. A warrior, Matakori, had fallen in love with her. However, the chief told Matakori he had to stay away from his daughter. She's too good for you, he said. Well, Manata was sorry that she couldn't marry Matakori because she loved him too, and she spent a lot of her time sitting by the river, being miserable about it. Then, one morning, as the people of the tribe were waking up, somebody noticed she had gone. Well, the people of the village looked everywhere for her, but found nothing. Until, over here! People rushed to the river, and there, in the mud, was a footprint bigger than a house. Everybody looked at each other. They didn't want to say what they were thinking. They'd all felt the ground shaking in the night, but thought it an earthquake. But now everyone knew what it had been, and who owned the footprint, and who had taken Manata. It was Matau, the feared giant of the south. He was bigger than a house, bigger than a mountain, and what's more, had a terrible temper. And so, when the chief said, "Who will rescue my beloved daughter?" everyone just sort of looked at their feet and shuffled about a bit, even the biggest and strongest warriors of the tribe. "Whoever rescues Manata will marry her," the chief tried in desperation, but still nobody moved to help. Everyone knew that they would never come back from a fight with a giant like that. But one warrior was missing. While the chief had been pleading with his men, Matakori had grabbed his axe and his cape and had left the village. Off he went with anger and determination in his stride, heading for Matau's lair. And suddenly, there he was. The giant was laying, fast asleep, and tied to his wrist by a rope made of dodskin was Manata. Her eyes lit up when she caught sight of her rescuer, but at the same time she whispered, "Be careful, if the wind changes you'll be killed." Well, Matakori was not going to be put off that easily. He crept up to the huge, snoring, wobbling mountain of flesh and grasped at one of the ropes tying Manata. He grabbed his trusty axe, made from the finest greenstone, and tried to cut it. But nothing. For he'd forgotten that a dogskin rope could not be cut with a greenstone axe. Again and again he swung the axe, but it was no good. Manata started to cry. "Leave me, go back, it's useless." But then a strange thing happened. A tear fell from her eyes onto the rope. It fizzed, smoked, and snapped. They ran away, hardly believing their luck. They reached the river where Matakori had a raft, and they floated merrily, merrily home. When Manata's father saw them, he proclaimed that they must be married on the spot. However, now that Manata was safe, there was one thing Matakori had to do. He had to kill the giant once and for all, so he could never take away any of the villagers again. He set off for Matau's lair, alone, because although he explained to the other men that the giant would sleep, they were too scared to come with him. And so the brave Matakori crept alone again up to the giant. Sure enough, the giant lay sleeping as the northwest wind still blew on a bed of dry ferns, his enormous head resting on Mount Earnslaw and his feet many miles to the south. His snores rumbled across the valley like an earthquake. Quickly and quietly, Matakori started his plan. He gathered handfuls of flax and dried wood. It took many days to pile the scrub all around the huge body, but still Matau slept. Then, just as the wind seemed to be changing and the giant seemed to start waking, Matakori lit the fire. The flames grew, and the restless giant pulled his knees up to his chest to keep his toes from the fire. But the dark smoke billowed and suffocated, and the giant never woke again. The fat from the giant's body fed the flames and made them so hot and so fierce that they burned a hole in the ground where the giant had been. They were so hot and so fierce that they melted all the snow on the mountain tops. Streams flowed and swelled, and water went into the new hole, filling it right up until it became the Lake Wakatipu we know today. And the water still lies in the giant-shaped hole that Matau left, when his head was in Glenorchy, his knees in Frankton, and his feet all the way down in Kingston. Matakuri ran all the way home, and he and Manata lived happily ever after. But there is still one more strange thing. Legend has it that you can never destroy the heart of a giant, and sure enough, the heart of Matau still lies beating at the bottom of the lake. And as it beats, the waters of Lake Wakatipu move in time. Sometimes it beats fiercely, and the waves lash the shores. But mostly the lake is placid, and the waters rise and fall, and what is left of Matau the giant sleeps forever.